The County General Hospital stood on the outskirts of a quiet town in rural Pennsylvania, far from the noise of the city. It was an old establishment, built sometime before World War II, and though still operational, its age showed in every cracked wall and rusted railing. The pale yellow paint had faded into a sickly shade, and broken awnings hung like tired eyelids over the windows. Behind the main building, separated by a narrow, weed-covered path, stood the morgue, a small, isolated structure that most staff avoided unless absolutely necessary. It had 4 windows. 3 of them were ordinary, often opened for ventilation, but the 4th window was always kept shut. No one questioned it anymore. Dr. Emily Carter had recently been assigned to the hospital. She was 32, a newly certified forensic pathologist, confident in her knowledge but inexperienced when it came to handling real corpses. Everything she knew had come from textbooks, clean diagrams, and controlled environments. This place was different. Her first day at the morgue introduced her to Samuel Briggs, the senior morgue assistant who had worked there for over 3 decades. He was thin, slightly hunched, with gray hair and tired eyes that carried an unsettling depth. His voice was calm, but there was always a warning hidden beneath it. He managed everything in the morgue with quiet authority. There was also Jake Miller, a ward attendant in his late 20s. Careless but efficient, he often bent the rules but got his work done quickly. He was popular among the nurses for his easygoing nature, though sometimes his enthusiasm crossed into recklessness. The hospital was overseen by Director Harold Green, a strict administrator in his 60s. Despite his rigid demeanor, he held a quiet belief that not everything in the world could be explained by logic. Among the staff was senior nurse Laura Bennett, observant and sharp. She noticed everything, but when it came to the morgue, she preferred silence. She had seen things she never spoke about. When Dr. Carter first entered the morgue, Samuel stopped her gently and told her she could open any of the 3 windows, but she must never touch the 4th. She had laughed it off, assuming it was just superstition. But that was where everything began. Years ago, another doctor had worked there, Dr. Michael Hayes. He had been brilliant, rational, and dismissive of anything supernatural. One night, during a long shift, he opened the 4th window while smoking. Nurse Laura had passed by at that exact moment. She later recalled that as soon as the window opened, a strange, cold mist had drifted inside. Dr. Hayes had frozen, staring into something that wasn't there. His face had twisted into pure terror. When she returned minutes later, he was still there, sweating, trembling, eyes locked on the window. He never spoke about it afterward, but he changed. Within days, he filed for a transfer. However, 2 weeks before it could be approved, his body was found in the hospital courtyard, directly beneath that same window. There were no injuries. His eyes were wide open, frozen in the same horror Laura had seen that night. After that incident, the administration ordered the 4th window to remain permanently closed. Dr. Carter continued her routine without concern. For her, the window was just an old story, nothing more, until one night. Due to limited space during a busy shift, a body was placed on a table directly in front of the 4th window. It was an oversight, small, careless, unnoticed. That night was a new moon. Emily was alone in the morgue when the lights began to flicker violently. Despite the backup generator running smoothly, the air grew heavy, suffocating. Samuel stepped inside and quietly reminded her that it was no ordinary night, and that placing anything in front of that window was a mistake. At around 2 a.m., the silence was broken by a faint scraping sound. It was slow and deliberate, like fingernails dragging across metal. Emily turned. The bars of the 4th window were bending slowly, unnaturally, as if something from the outside was pulling them inward. She called out, but there was no response. Beyond the window, there was nothing but dense fog, and within it, a dim, flickering light like a candle struggling to stay alive. A sudden gust of icy wind rushed in, and the sheet covering the corpse fluttered violently. Emily didn't sleep that night. The next morning, questions flooded her mind. Samuel hinted that the window punished those who ignored its warning, but she needed answers. Director Green finally told her the truth. Years ago, the body of a young woman named Rebecca Shaw had been brought in. She had been brutally assaulted and murdered. Her face was so badly damaged that her family couldn't identify her. Without proper claims or rights, her body had been left temporarily beneath that very window. The next day, the doctor on duty disappeared. All that was found were bloodstains, a shoe, and a torn belt. Her body was never recovered. Something had been left unfinished. Days later, Jake, unaware of the full story, tried to clean near the 4th window. The moment his hand touched it, he felt a violent shock surge through his body. That night, at 2:45 a.m., a horrifying scream echoed through the morgue. Laura rushed in. Jake lay on the floor, lifeless. His eyes were wide, his mouth frozen mid-scream. His face was filled with unimaginable terror. For a split second, Laura saw a figure near the window, a woman in a tattered dress, her face hidden in shadow. Then she vanished. Emily could no longer ignore it. She believed the spirit was restless, not evil, but trapped. Determined to end it, she convinced Director Green to allow an investigation. On the next new moon, she brought in a spiritual practitioner, an old man named Victor Hale, known for dealing with unresolved energies. They prepared a ritual inside the morgue. Emily placed cameras near the window and stood her ground despite the fear tightening her chest. At exactly 3 a.m., the chains on the window rattled violently. The temperature dropped sharply. The camera screens went blank. Then she heard it, a whisper asking for justice. A shadow formed slowly in front of her, a burned, broken figure dressed in blood-stained fabric, her face barely human. The presence spoke without words, conveying years of pain, abandonment, and silence. Emily, trembling, promised that she would give her the dignity she was denied. Victor continued chanting, casting ash toward the window. A piercing scream filled the room, raw and agonizing, as if years of suffering were being released at once. The air slowly calmed, but the work wasn't done. Emily reopened the cold case. Through DNA records and hospital archives, she managed to locate Rebecca's family. They had long lost hope. With the ashes recovered symbolically from the ritual, the family performed proper funeral rites at a quiet riverside. A week later, something changed. The fourth window closed on its own. No more sounds, no more shadows. The morgue felt still, peaceful. The hospital later sealed the window permanently and placed a small cross above it. Even now, some staff say that not all spirits seek revenge. Some only wait to be heard. And that window was never just a window. It was a call that had been unanswered for far too long. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like and subscribe, because more terrifying stories are waiting for you.